The twilight air pressed heavy against Phoenix's skin as she stood at the edge of the pack gathering, one hand splayed protectively across her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant, and she'd never felt more alone. The Silver Creek pack had assembled in the forest clearing for the monthly moon ceremony, but Phoenix remained in the shadows where Omegas belonged, especially disgraced ones carrying pups without mates. She pressed her palm harder against her stomach, waiting. The pup usually responded to her touch with a kick or roll, a reassurance that life continued despite everything. Phoenix counted silently. 1 breath, 2, 3, nothing. Her heart stuttered. She pressed again, more urgently this time, fingers splaying wider as if she could coax movement through sheer desperation. The fabric of her dress bunched under her trembling hands. Still nothing. No flutter, no shift. Just terrible, consuming silence where her pup's constant activity should have been. "No," she whispered. "Please, no." Around her, pack members laughed and conversed, oblivious to the panic clawing up her throat. Phoenix stumbled backward, her shoulder blades scraping against rough bark as she collided with a pine tree. The sharp scent of sap filled her nostrils, making her dizzy. Or perhaps that was the fear. She couldn't tell anymore where terror ended and reality began. She thought of Damien, the wolf who'd sworn she was his fated mate 3 months ago. He'd touched her belly with such tenderness, promised her the world, made her believe a low-ranking Omega could find happiness. Then the pregnancy complications started. The weakness, the vulnerability, and he'd looked at her with disgust instead of love. "I won't be tied to damaged goods," he'd said, before rejecting their bond. The pain of that severing still ached in her chest like a phantom wound. Now she might lose the only piece of love she had left. Phoenix's knees buckled. She caught herself against the tree, bark biting into her palms as her vision swam with black spots. The voices around her seemed to come from underwater, distorted and distant. Someone laughed, a sharp, cruel sound that pierced through her panic. "The abandoned Omega looks unwell," someone muttered. "Probably realizes what a burden she'll be, raising a pup alone." Phoenix barely heard them. Her entire world had narrowed to the terrifying stillness beneath her hands. She needed to move, to find the pack healer, to do something. But her legs wouldn't cooperate. The forest floor tilted sideways as she slid down the tree trunk, her dress catching and tearing on a branch. The ripping sound seemed impossibly loud. She hit the ground hard, pine needles and damp earth cushioning her fall, but not preventing the jolt that traveled through her body. Her hands never left her belly. Still nothing. The pup who'd been so active just hours ago, who kicked her ribs and pressed against her bladder and made her feel less alone in the dark nights, gone silent. "Help," she tried to say, but it came out as barely a whisper. The gathering continued mere yards away, but it might as well have been miles. No one looked toward the shadows where the worthless Omega had collapsed. Footsteps approached, slow, measured, accompanied by the tap of a walking stick against stone. Phoenix forced her eyes open to see Elder Maris peering down at her, the ancient she-wolf's face creased with concern and something else. Something that looked like recognition. "The stillness has come," Maris said softly, kneeling beside Phoenix with surprising grace for her age. Her gnarled hand covered Phoenix's. "How long?" "I don't know. Minutes? It feels like hours." Phoenix's voice cracked. "Please, something's wrong. The pup—" "Hush, now." Maris's other hand pressed against Phoenix's belly, and the elder's milky eyes went distant. The sounds of the gathering faded, as if someone had thrown a blanket over the world. Phoenix felt a strange warmth radiating from Maris's palm, seeping through fabric and skin. After a moment that stretched like eternity, Maris withdrew her hand and sat back on her heels. Her expression was grave. "Your pup lives," she said, and Phoenix's sob of relief was cut short by Maris's next words. "But they exist in a space between. neither fully here nor gone. I've felt this only once before, child. 70 years past. Phoenix struggled to sit up, her back pressed against the tree. What does that mean? How do I fix it? There has to be something. Maris's weathered fingers trembled as she reached into the leather pouch at her waist. She withdrew a piece of bark, its surface carved with symbols that seemed to shift in the firelight. This is all that remains of the sacred grove. The council burned it when I was barely older than you. I don't understand, Phoenix's voice cracked. The last silent child was born there. Maris traced one of the carved symbols, a crescent moon cradling a star. Her mother was Omega born, cast out by her pack for carrying a child with no father's scent to claim it. When the babe wouldn't wake, wouldn't cry, the healers said she was lost between worlds. Phoenix's hand instinctively covered her belly. The carved bark seemed to pulse with warmth. What happened to them? Maris's eyes reflected the dancing flames. The mother begged everyone, healers, shamans, even rogues. Nothing worked. Then an alpha king, exiled for his cruelty, heard her cries echoing through the forest. She paused, her thumb stroking the star symbol. His voice, it called the child back. But the power that awakened her. The old healer's words died as screams erupted from the gathering behind them. Phoenix twisted to see pack members fleeing, their eyes wide with terror. Maris, what power? What happened after the child woke? But Maris was already struggling to her feet, the carved bark clutched against her chest. Find the voice that makes your wolf sing, child, before the silence claims them forever. G to feel her pup move again. The alpha king of the Northern Territories. Maris looked toward the pack hall in the distance, its windows glowing warm against the darkening sky. He arrives tomorrow. The pack leaders received word this afternoon. He comes investigating rumors of the prophecy child. Phoenix's blood ran cold. The Alpha King, Crew's Nightshade, the most powerful alpha in living memory, whose territory stretched across half the continent, a wolf so dominant that other alphas submitted in his presence. And he was coming here, hunting for a prophecy child that might be growing silent in her womb. I have to run, Phoenix whispered. If he finds us... He will find you regardless. Maris's tone was matter-of-fact. Alpha kings do not lose prey they hunt. But child, consider this. What if the prophecy is not a curse but salvation? What if he is not your pup's doom but their awakening? Phoenix wanted to argue, to deny, to reject everything the elder said. But her hands remained pressed against her silent belly, and fear made her willing to grasp at any hope, no matter how terrifying. What do I do? She asked. Survive until tomorrow, Maris said simply. Keep breathing. Keep believing life continues inside you, even in silence. And when the Alpha King arrives, trust that the Moon Goddess has woven this thread for a reason. The elder pushed herself to standing with her walking stick and looked down at Phoenix with something between pity and awe. You are about to become either the most important or most hunted Omega in our world, Phoenix of Silver Creek. Possibly both. Then Maris walked away, leaving Phoenix alone in the shadows with her silent pup and terror that tasted like copper on her tongue. Phoenix didn't sleep that night. She lay in her small room at the Omega Barracks, hands pressed against her belly, whispering pleas that went unanswered. The other Omegas gave her a wide berth. An abandoned, pregnant Omega was bad luck, they said. Her scent was wrong now, tainted by rejection and desperation. As dawn broke, painting her bare walls in shades of gray and gold, Phoenix felt hollowed out. The pup hadn't moved in nearly 12 hours. She could still sense life there, a faint pulse of existence through their blood bond, but it was fading, like a candle slowly drowning in wax. The summons came mid-morning. Every pack member was to assemble in the main hall immediately. The Alpha King had arrived early, and attendance was mandatory. Phoenix dressed in her plainest dress, dark green, high-necked, nothing that would draw attention, and braided her copper hair tightly. She wanted to disappear into the crowd, to be overlooked. But as she placed her hand on her belly one more time before leaving her room, she wondered if disappearing was even possible anymore. Not if Maris was right. Not if the most powerful alpha in the territories was coming to find her. The main hall was already packed when Phoenix slipped inside. She kept to the back, pressing herself against the wall between two larger females who shifted away from her immediately. Their rejection barely registered. She was used to it. Alpha Garrett of Silver Creek stood on the raised platform at the front, his chest puffed with self-importance despite the nervous energy radiating off him in waves. Beside him stood a wolf, who made Garrett look like a pup playing at authority. Crew's nightshade dominated the space without moving. He stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back, but every eye in the room was drawn to him. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with shoulders that strained against his black shirt. Dark hair fell to his collar, and even from a distance Phoenix could see the sharp angles of his face, the strong jaw, the full mouth set in a hard line. But it was his presence that stole her breath. Power rolled off him in waves that made her wolf whimper and press close to her consciousness. This was an alpha who could command armies with a look, topple kingdoms with a word. This was danger in beautiful, masculine form. "The Alpha King honors us with his presence," Garrett was saying, his voice too loud, too eager. "He seeks information regarding the ancient prophecy. If any of you have knowledge of unusual pregnancies, pups born with strange abilities, anything that might—" Silence. The word was quiet. Cruz hadn't raised his voice, but the single syllable cut through the room like a blade, and every wolf fell silent immediately, including Garrett, whose mouth snapped shut mid-sentence. Phoenix felt the command in her bones. But more than that, she felt something else. The moment Cruz spoke, a vibration moved through her body, resonating in her chest, her belly, her very core. And for the first time in 12 hours, her pup moved, just a flutter, just the barest shift. But it was there. Phoenix gasped, her hand flying to her stomach. The sound was small, but in the absolute silence of the room, it carried. Cruz's head turned with predatory precision, his eyes scanning the crowd until they locked on her. Time stopped. His eyes were amber, not brown, not gold, but true amber like fossilized sunlight. And the moment they met hers, Phoenix felt something snap into place in her chest. A bond, a connection, something that terrified her even as it made her wolf surge forward with recognition and longing. "Mate," her wolf whispered. "Ours." No, Phoenix thought desperately. Not this. Not him. Not when her life was already shattered beyond repair. But Cruz's eyes widened slightly, the only break in his controlled expression, and she knew he felt it too, knew he recognized what she was to him. "You," he said, and his voice sent another wave of vibration through her body. The pup rolled, more insistent now, pressing against her palm as if reaching toward the sound. "Come forward!" Phoenix couldn't move. Terror locked her limbs. Around her, pack members turned to stare, recognition dawning on their faces. The abandoned Omega, the worthless one. Of course she would somehow be involved in this disaster. "I said come forward." Cruz's voice held more command now, and Phoenix's legs moved without her permission, carrying her through the crowd that parted like water. She kept her eyes down, her hand pressed protectively over her belly, where the pup continued to move, each flutter like a miracle. She stopped at the base of the platform, still unable to look up. She could feel Cruz's gaze on her like a physical touch, could smell his scent now, pine and snow, and something wild and masculine that made her mouth go dry. "Look at me." She had no choice. Her head lifted, her eyes meeting his again, and the impact was even stronger up close. He was devastatingly handsome in a harsh, uncompromising way, and the way he looked at her, like she was something precious and breakable in his, made her want to run and step closer in equal measure. "You're pregnant," he said, Statement, not question. How far along? 7 months, she whispered. Her voice sounded strange, broken. And the father? Shame heated her cheeks. He rejected our bond. I'm alone. Something dangerous flashed in Cruz's eyes. Not anymore, he said quietly. Then louder, addressing the room. This female is under my personal protection. She will be coming with me to the Northern Palace. Anyone who objects can voice their concerns now. Silence. No one would dare, except Alpha Garrett, who stepped forward with poorly concealed rage. Your Majesty, that's just Phoenix. She's nobody. An Omega who couldn't even keep her mate. Why would you? Because she carries the prophecy child, Cruz said flatly. And because she's my mate. Any other questions? The room exploded into chaos. Phoenix's legs gave out. Strong hands caught her before she hit the ground. Cruz's hands, she realized distantly. Because the moment he touched her, the pup went wild with movement, rolling and kicking like they were celebrating. Keep breathing, Cruz murmured, his mouth close to her ear as he lifted her effortlessly. His voice resonated through her, and she felt the pup respond to every syllable. I've got you. You're safe now. Phoenix wanted to argue that she wasn't safe, that she'd never be safe again, that he was the Alpha King and she was nothing and this was impossible. But the pup was moving, truly moving for the first time in 12 hours, and Cruz was carrying her through the crowd like she weighed nothing, and his voice kept rumbling through his chest into hers. The pup responds to my voice, he said, more to himself than her. That confirms it. The prophecy is real. Please, Phoenix managed. I don't understand any of this. You will. Cruz pushed through the doors into bright sunlight, and Phoenix squinted against the glare. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe, somewhere I can explain without your pack members listening to every word. He was already walking toward the visiting Alpha's quarters, his long strides eating up ground while she clung to his neck. She should protest, should demand to be put down. But the pup kept moving, and that mattered more than pride or propriety or fear. Cruz shouldered open a door and carried her into a suite that dwarfed her entire barracks. He set her down on a plush sofa with surprising gentleness, then stepped back, putting distance between them as if he didn't trust himself too close. Your pup, he said without preamble. When did they stop moving? Last night, during the pack gathering. Phoenix kept her hand on her belly, feeling the continued movement with overwhelming relief. But when you spoke in the hall just now, they moved again, and they haven't stopped since you... She trailed off, unsure how to finish. Since I touched you, Cruz completed. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that made him seem almost human despite the power radiating off him. I need you to understand something, Phoenix. My voice carries ancient alpha magic. It's rare. Only a few alphas in history have possessed it. And apparently, your pup needs it to survive. The words landed like blows. What do you mean, needs it? I mean that your child is the prophecy child, born of silence, awakened by specific alpha resonance. Cruz's amber eyes held hers. Without my voice, without me close by, they retreat into that silence. But when I speak, they wake. They thrive. Phoenix shook her head, denial rising like bile. No, that's not. There has to be another way. I can't. She gestured between them helplessly. You're the Alpha King. I'm nobody. This is insane. You're not nobody. Cruz's voice dropped lower, intimate despite the space between them. You're my mate. I knew it the moment I saw you. And beyond that, you're carrying a pup who needs me to survive. So whether this is insane or not doesn't matter. What matters is keeping both of you alive. And what does that mean? Phoenix asked, though she feared she already knew. It means you come with me to the Northern Palace, Cruz said. It means I stay close enough that my voice can reach you and the pup every day. And it means... He paused, something vulnerable flickering across his harsh features. It means we figure out what this mate bond between us means while keeping you safe from everyone who wants to destroy the prophecy before it comes to pass. Phoenix looked down at her belly, feeling the strong kicks and rolls that had been absent for 12 terrible hours. Her pup was alive, active, healthy. Because of him. Because of his voice, his presence, his protection. She thought of Damien, who'd abandoned her the moment she became inconvenient. And here was the most powerful alpha alive, offering to upend his life for a nobody Omega and her pup. It made no sense. It terrified her. It felt too much like hope, and hope was dangerous when you'd already been broken once. But when she looked up at Cruz, she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Not pity, not duty, but possessiveness, protectiveness, want. "I don't have a choice, do I?" she whispered. "There's always a choice," Cruz said quietly. "But I'm asking you to choose survival. Choose your pup's life. And maybe," his jaw tightened, "maybe choose to give this bond between us a chance." Phoenix's hand trembled against her belly. Every logical part of her screamed that this was moving too fast, that she couldn't trust this, that she'd be destroyed again. But the pup rolled beneath her palm, vibrant and strong, and she realized that her choices had narrowed to one. "Okay," she breathed. "I'll go with you." Cruz's exhale seemed to shake his whole frame. He moved then, crossing the space between them and kneeling before the sofa so they were eye to eye. His hand reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, before settling over hers on her belly. The pup kicked directly into their joined palms. "I will protect you both with my life," Cruz said, his voice resonating through her bones. "This I swear on my alpha blood and my crown. No one will harm you while I breathe." Phoenix believed him. Moon Goddess help her. She believed him. And as the pup danced beneath their hands, responding to the Alpha King's voice like it was the song they'd been waiting for, Phoenix wondered if maybe, just maybe, this disaster might be the beginning of something else entirely. The journey north began at dawn. Phoenix had barely slept, wedged between fear of the unknown and the strange comfort of Cruz's voice rumbling through the walls of the guest quarters as he coordinated their departure. Even separated by wood and stone, the low timbre of his commands made her pup roll and stretch, more active than they'd been in weeks. She packed nothing. She had nothing worth taking, just the torn dress from the gathering and two others equally worn. A servant had brought fresh clothes in the night, simple traveling garments in soft leather and linen that fit her swollen form perfectly. Phoenix wondered who had taken her measurements, then decided she didn't want to know. This world of alpha kings and prophecies and instant life changes moved too fast for her to process. When Cruz knocked, she was sitting on the edge of the bed, hands pressed to her belly, trying to memorize the feeling of her pup's movements in case it all turned out to be temporary. In case his voice stopped working, in case this was just another dream that would shatter and leave her alone again. "Come in," she said quietly. He entered with the same controlled power he'd shown in the great hall, but softer somehow in the early light. He'd changed into travel clothes, dark pants, boots built for distance, a shirt that did nothing to hide the breadth of his shoulders. His amber eyes found hers immediately, and Phoenix felt that pull again, the mate bond tugging at something deep in her chest. "How are you feeling?" Cruz asked. His voice wrapped around her, and the pup kicked enthusiastically against her ribs. "Your voice is like a drug to them," Phoenix said, a little breathless from the impact. "They go crazy every time you speak." Something possessive and tender crossed Cruz's face. "Good. That's good." He moved closer, then seemed to catch himself, maintaining distance. "The journey will take 5 days. I'd use vehicles, but they make my wolf restless, and I need to stay calm around you. Controlled." Phoenix heard what he didn't say, that the mate bond made him want things he couldn't take, made his alpha instinct scream to claim and protect and possess. She felt it too, the pull toward him that had nothing to do with gratitude or prophecies. Her Omega wolf recognized its mate and wanted to submit, to accept, to trust. But her human heart remembered Damien's rejection and built walls. 5 days, she repeated. And you'll need to… What? Talk to me? To keep the pup active? Among other things. Cruz's jaw tightened. I'll need to stay close. Sleep nearby. The magic responds to proximity and sound. The closer I am, the stronger they'll be. Heat crept up Phoenix's neck. Close. He'd be close for 5 days and nights. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Okay, she managed. I'm ready. They left through a back exit to avoid her pack's stares. Cruz's beta, Marcus, waited with 3 other warriors and horses already loaded with supplies. Marcus was almost as tall as Cruz, with dark skin, kind eyes, and an easy smile that felt like a relief after so much intensity. My lady, he said, bowing slightly, I've prepared the gentlest mare we have. She'll keep you comfortable. I'm not a lady, Phoenix said automatically. I'm just… You're the Alpha King's mate, Marcus interrupted gently. That makes you our queen. You'll get used to the title eventually. Phoenix doubted that, but accepted his help mounting the horse. Cruz swung onto a massive black stallion that suited him perfectly, all controlled power and barely restrained wildness. He positioned himself beside her, close enough that their legs nearly touched when the horses shifted. Stay within arm's reach, he told her quietly. If you feel the pup go still, tell me immediately. Then they were moving, leaving Silver Creek behind. Phoenix didn't look back. There was nothing there for her anymore except shame and rejection. Whatever lay ahead, it had to be better than what she was leaving. The first day passed in strange silence. Cruz spoke occasionally to Marcus or the guards, and each time his voice made Phoenix's pup dance. But he didn't speak to her directly, as if he didn't trust himself to start a conversation he couldn't control. Phoenix found herself both grateful and disappointed. They stopped at midday to rest the horses. Phoenix's back ached, and her bladder screamed protest from hours in the saddle. Marcus helped her down while Cruz checked their perimeter with the guards, always scanning for threats. He's terrified, Marcus said quietly, as he handed Phoenix dried meat and bread. She looked at the beta in surprise. Cruz, he doesn't seem afraid of anything. Not for himself, for you. Marcus's expression was knowing. I've served him for 12 years. I've seen him face down armies without flinching. But you? You make him afraid. Because you're vulnerable, and you're his, and he can't guarantee your safety every second of every day. It's driving his alpha insane. Phoenix absorbed this, watching Cruz move through the trees like a predator, all grace and lethal intent. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. Any of this. No one asks for mate bonds, Marcus agreed. But you got one anyway, with possibly the most powerful and most protective alpha alive. That's either a blessing or a curse depending on how you look at it. Before Phoenix could respond, Cruz returned, his eyes immediately finding her and scanning her body for signs of distress. The pup? He asked. Active, Phoenix confirmed. Very active. They're fine. Some of the tension left Cruz's shoulders. He nodded once, then moved away again to consult with the guards. Phoenix ate her meal and tried not to feel the weight of his constant attention, the way his eyes kept returning to her belly with something like wonder and terror mixed together. They made camp that night in a clearing protected on 3 sides by rock formations. The guards set up 2 tents, one for Phoenix, one for Cruz and Marcus, while Cruz himself built the fire. Phoenix watched his hands work, long fingers arranging kindling with unexpected gentleness. Everything about him was contradictions, savage and tender, commanding and careful, terrifying and compelling. After a simple meal, Marcus and the guards retreated to keep watch, leaving Phoenix and Cruz alone by the fire. The silence stretched between them, broken only by crackling flames and distant night sounds. Phoenix's pup had slowed their movements, not stopped, but definitely less active. She pressed her hand to her belly, worried. Cruz noticed immediately. "Talk to me," he said, his voice urgent. "Tell me what you're feeling." "They're quieting down," Phoenix admitted. "Not like before, not silent, but slower." Cruz shifted closer, the firelight casting sharp shadows across his face. "Then I'll talk," he said. "I'll keep talking until they settle into sleep rather than silence. There's a difference. Sleep is natural, healthy. Silence is the retreat. I can feel the difference in the magic." He began to speak, and it wasn't commands or battle plans but stories. He told her about the Northern Palace, about its ancient halls carved from mountain stone, about winter auroras that painted the sky in colors she'd never imagined. His voice rumbled through her, rich and deep, and the pup responded by stretching and rolling, pressing against her skin as if trying to get closer to the sound. Phoenix closed her eyes and let his words wash over her. She didn't realize she was swaying slightly until Cruz's hand steadied her shoulder. "You need sleep," he said softly. "Real sleep, not what you got last night worrying about everything." "I don't think I can sleep," Phoenix admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, I remember the silence, the terror of it." Cruz's hand tightened on her shoulder, then released. "I'll be right outside your tent," he said, "talking, reading, whatever it takes. You'll hear my voice all night, and so will the pup, I promise." Tears pricked Phoenix's eyes at the certainty in his tone. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do all this for someone you just met? I know the mate bond is powerful, but it's everything," Cruz finished. His amber eyes held hers with burning intensity. "You're everything. The moment I saw you, something in me recognized something in you, and my wolf claimed you before my brain could process it. And beyond that, beyond the bond, you're brave, Phoenix. You stood there pregnant and alone and terrified, and you didn't run, you didn't hide. You survived. That takes strength most alphas don't have." Phoenix couldn't breathe. No one had ever spoken to her like that, had ever seen strength where she only saw weakness. "I'm not brave," she managed. "I'm just too scared to do anything else." "That's what bravery is," Cruz said. "Being scared and doing it anyway. Now go, sleep. I'll be right here." Phoenix retreated to her tent on shaking legs. She lay down on the bedroll, still fully dressed, and listened to Cruz settle outside. True to his word, he began speaking, reading aloud from what sounded like reports or letters, his voice a constant rumble that made her pup move contentedly. Slowly, impossibly, Phoenix felt herself relaxing. The deep timbre of Cruz's voice became a lullaby, wrapping around her like a blanket. Her pup's movements gentled into the natural rhythm of sleep rather than that terrifying stillness. And for the first time since Damien's rejection, Phoenix felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Hope. The northern palace rose from the mountain like a crown of stone and ice. Phoenix had been unprepared for its beauty. Soaring towers, walls that glittered with embedded quartz, windows that caught the late afternoon sun and threw it back in shards of light. This was power made manifest. This was where she was supposed to live now. This nobody Omega from a backwater pack. The thought made her nauseous. "It's massive," she breathed, as their horses climbed the final approach. "It's home," Cruz said simply. Then, more quietly, "You're home now, too." Phoenix didn't know how to respond to that. The 5-day journey had created a strange intimacy between them. Cruz speaking to her and her pup each night, his voice chasing away silence and fear, his presence a constant protective shadow. But intimacy didn't erase the vast gulf between Alpha King and rejected Omega. It just made her more aware of everything she wasn't. They entered through gates flanked by guards who bowed as Cruz passed. More guards lined the courtyard. Servants waited at the palace entrance, their expressions carefully neutral as they took in Phoenix's pregnancy, her worn appearance, the way she clung to her horse like it was the only solid thing in a spinning world. Marcus helped her dismount, while Cruz gave rapid orders in a voice that carried complete authority. Phoenix's pup rolled and kicked, responding to the command in his tone. She pressed her hand to her belly, grateful for the movement even as anxiety crawled up her throat. A woman emerged from the palace entrance, tall and elegant in deep blue silk, her blonde hair swept up in an intricate style. She was beautiful in a way that made Phoenix feel small and dirty by comparison. When she saw Cruz, her expression softened into something intimate and familiar. "Cruz," she said, her voice musical. "You're back." "Selena." Cruz's tone was carefully neutral. "I didn't expect you here. The council asked me to oversee preparations for the Northern Summit." Selena's eyes moved to Phoenix, and something cold flickered in their blue depths. "And to welcome your guest." "Not guest. Mate." Cruz moved to Phoenix's side, his presence solid and protective. "Phoenix, this is Lady Selena of the Eastern Lakes. Selena, Phoenix of Silver Creek. My mate and future queen." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Selena's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went ice cold. "How unexpected," she said. "Congratulations to you both. I'm sure we'll become great friends." Phoenix doubted that sincerely. She could read the possessiveness in Selena's gaze, the way she looked at Cruz like he was something she'd lost, or something she still believed she owned. "Marcus will show you to your chambers," Cruz said to Phoenix. "I need to meet with my council immediately. I'll come to you this evening." He was leaving her. Phoenix felt panic spike, sharp and immediate. 5 days of his constant presence, and now he'd be gone. What if the pup went silent again? What if— Phoenix. Cruz's hand cupped her cheek, forcing her eyes to his. "Breathe. The chambers are close to mine. You'll hear my voice through the walls during the meeting. The pup will be fine. You'll be fine. Trust me." She wanted to argue, to cling to him like a child afraid of the dark, but pride kept her spine straight. She nodded once, not trusting her voice. Cruz's thumb brushed her cheekbone, tender despite their audience. Then he was striding away, Selena falling into step beside him with comfortable familiarity, and Phoenix was left feeling lost in this palace of stone and power. "Come, my lady," Marcus said gently. "Let's get you settled." He led her through corridors that seemed designed to overwhelm, high ceilings, tapestries depicting ancient battles, windows that offered views of mountains and forests stretching to impossible distances. Phoenix's chambers, when they finally arrived, were larger than the entire Omega Barracks at Silver Creek. The bed alone could sleep 4. Rich furs covered the floor. A fireplace dominated one wall, already lit and warming the space. "There's a bathing room through there," Marcus said, pointing. "Fresh clothes in the wardrobe. If you need anything, pull that cord and servants will come. Cruz's chambers are directly above yours, and his office is down that corridor. You'll hear him clearly from here." As if summoned, Cruz's voice rumbled through the walls. Muffled words, but that familiar deep timbre. Phoenix's pup immediately kicked, and relief flooded her. "Thank you," she said to Marcus. "For everything, for being kind when you didn't have to be." Marcus's smile was warm. "You're family now," he said simply. "We take care of family. Rest. You're safe here." He left, and Phoenix was alone in chambers fit for royalty, pregnant with a prophecy child, mated to an alpha king who made her feel things she'd sworn never to feel again. She sank onto the edge of the massive bed and finally let herself cry, for fear, for relief, for everything that had happened too fast to process. And through it all, Cruz's voice resonated through the walls, keeping her pup active, keeping her tethered to something solid in a world that had turned upside down. Phoenix woke to complete darkness and immediate terror. The pup wasn't moving. She pressed her hand to her belly, desperate, and felt only stillness. How long had she slept? Where was Cruz's voice? Then she heard it, soft, close, right beside her bed. Ancient bloodlines converged during the wars, creating power structures that still influence pack politics today. The Southern territories maintained their independence through Phoenix's eyes adjusted to the darkness. Cruz sat in a chair pulled close to her bedside, a book open in his lap, reading aloud in that deep voice that made her pup stir and stretch. He hadn't noticed she was awake. His attention was fixed on the book, but she could see tension in his shoulders, exhaustion in the lines around his eyes. He'd been here for hours, reading to her sleeping form, keeping her pup active through the night. Cruz, she whispered. His head snapped up, amber eyes finding hers in the darkness. Phoenix, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. You fell asleep and I came to check on you and the pup's movements were sluggish, so I thought I'd read for a while and then… He stopped, seeming to realize he was explaining himself to her when he was the Alpha King who answered to no one. You've been here the whole time, Phoenix said softly. It wasn't a question. You need my voice. The pup needs it. Cruz set the book aside. I wasn't going to risk either of you going through that silence again. Phoenix sat up slowly, her hand still pressed to her belly where the pup now rolled energetically. Cruz leaned forward as if to help her, then caught himself, maintaining distance even as every line of his body strained toward her. Tell me something, Phoenix said. Tell me why you really care this much. And don't say it's just the mate bond or the prophecy. There's something else. I can feel it. Cruz was quiet for a long moment. Then, I had a sister, he said, his voice rougher than usual. Younger than me by 3 years. There was a prophecy about her too. A child of alpha blood who would bring peace or destruction. I was 19 when they came for her. A faction convinced she'd be destruction. They killed her in front of me and I couldn't stop them. I was already strong, already dominant, but not strong enough. Phoenix's breath caught. Cruz? I swore that day that no prophecy child would die on my watch ever again, that I'd be strong enough, powerful enough, to protect what mattered. His eyes met hers, full of old pain and fierce determination. And then I found you, my mate, carrying another prophecy child. It felt like the moon goddess giving me a second chance, a chance to do what I failed to do before. Phoenix reached out without thinking, her hand finding his cheek. He froze at the contact, his breath stuttering. This close, she could see gold flecks in his amber eyes, could feel heat radiating from his skin. I'm not your second chance, she said gently. I'm not your sister. You don't have to save me to make up for losing her. I know that. Cruz's hand came up to cover hers, pressing it more firmly against his face. But Phoenix, you're not just my second chance. You're my mate, my fated one. Do you understand what that means? Every instinct I have screams to protect you, claim you, keep you safe. Not because of my sister, not because of the prophecy. Because you're mine, and I was made to be yours. Phoenix's heart hammered against her ribs. I'm terrified, she whispered. Damien said the same things at first, that I was his, that he'd protect me, and then he left the moment I became inconvenient. I am not him. Cruz's voice dropped to a growl that made her pup kick hard. I don't abandon what's mine. I don't break my promises, and I swear to you on my alpha blood and my crown, I will never, ever turn away from you or this pup. Not when things get hard, not when danger comes, not ever. Phoenix searched his eyes for any hint of lie or deception, found only burning sincerity and want so intense it stole her breath. Show me, she breathed. Cruz's control snapped. He surged forward, his mouth finding hers with desperate gentleness. The kiss was everything, fire and need and tenderness wrapped together. His hand cradled the back of her head, while the other came to rest on her belly, protective and possessive. Phoenix's pup went wild between them, rolling and kicking as if celebrating. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cruz pressed his forehead to hers. I want you, he said roughly. Moon goddess, I want you so badly it's killing me. But not until you're ready. Not until you trust me completely. I can wait. I'm starting to trust you, Phoenix admitted. That terrifies me more than anything. I'll earn it, Cruz's thumb traced her jaw. Every day, I'll earn it. I'll speak to you and the pup. I'll keep you safe. I'll show you that not all alphas abandon their mates. And one day, maybe you'll believe that you deserve this, that you deserve everything. Phoenix's eyes burned with unshed tears. No one had ever fought for her like this. No one had ever seen value where she only saw weakness. Stay, she whispered. Tonight. Not for the pup. For me. I don't want to be alone. Something tender and possessive crossed Cruz's face. Always, he said. I'll always stay. He settled back in the chair, pulling it closer until his hand could rest on her belly, his voice a constant low rumble that kept her pup active and content. Phoenix lay back down, her hand covering his, and for the first time since Damien's rejection, she let herself imagine a future that didn't hurt. A future where she was chosen, protected, valued, a future where she was loved. The mate bond was a whisper now, faint as dying breath. Cruz stood in his destroyed office, desk shattered, windows cracked from the force of his rage, and reached desperately for that golden thread connecting him to Phoenix. It flickered like a candle in a storm, growing weaker with each passing moment. 43 minutes. That's how long she'd been gone. Your Majesty, the scouts have identified 3 possible locations. The warrior's words cut off as Cruz's eyes flashed pure gold, his wolf surging so close to the surface that his bones cracked with the beginning of a shift. I don't have time for reconnaissance, Cruz growled, his voice barely human. She's dying. The pup is dying. I can feel it through the bond. Marcus stepped forward, his own wolf showing in his eyes as he responded to his alpha's distress. Then we hit all 3 locations simultaneously. I'll take the eastern compound. You take the mountains. Garrett can lead the team to the southern warehouse. No. Cruz's hand wrapped around the edge of his ruined desk, wood splintering under his grip. I know where she is. I can feel her. He pressed his fist to his chest, to that aching space where the bond pulled with desperate urgency. North, deep in the mountains, the old mining facility that was abandoned 20 years ago. That's 60 miles through rough terrain, Marcus said carefully. Even at a full run. Then I run. Cruz was already moving toward the door, his body beginning to shift even as he walked. Gather warriors who can keep pace. Anyone who falls behind continues on foot. But I'm not waiting. Not for one more second. His shirt tore as his shoulders broadened, muscles rippling and reforming. The shift hurt. It always hurt when his wolf took partial control, when he became something between man and beast. But pain meant nothing. Only Phoenix mattered. Only reaching her before that golden thread snapped completely and left him hollow. Cruz burst through the palace doors on 4 legs, his massive wolf form black as midnight and twice the size of a normal shifter. Behind him, Marcus and a dozen warriors shifted and followed, but Cruz was already disappearing into the forest, moving with supernatural speed born of desperation and ancient alpha magic. Trees blurred past. His paws ate up ground that would take hours to traverse on horseback. The mate bond pulled him forward like a compass, growing fainter with each mile but never disappearing. Not yet. She was still alive, still fighting. He could feel her fear through the bond, her pain, her stubborn refusal to give up. Hold on, he thought desperately, pushing the words through the mate bond with all his strength. I'm coming. Just hold on. If she heard him, he couldn't tell. The bond was too weak for communication, just strong enough to lead him to her like a rope in the darkness. 20 miles, 30, his lungs burned, his muscles screamed, he pushed harder. The first silent seeker camp appeared at the base of the mountain, 6 wolves in defensive formation around supply tents. They barely had time to register Cruz's approach before he was on them. His jaws closed around the first throat, ripping and tearing with savage efficiency. No mercy. No hesitation. They'd taken his mate. They'd threatened his pup. They deserved nothing but death. The fight lasted 30 seconds. Cruz left bodies in his wake and kept running. The mining facility emerged from the mountainside like a wound in the rock. Ancient structures clung to the cliff face, connected by rickety bridges and crumbling stairs. Guards patrolled the entrance, 12 that Cruz could see, probably more inside. His lips pulled back from his teeth in a snarl that echoed off the rocks. He didn't slow down. The first guard went down under Cruz's weight, bones snapping like kindling. The second managed to shift before Cruz's claws opened his throat. More poured from the entrance, and Cruz tore through them with single-minded focus. Blood painted the rocks. Screams echoed and died. His wolf was fully in control now, operating on pure instinct and rage. Something sharp pierced his shoulder, a silver blade wielded by a silence seeker who'd gotten too close. Cruz barely felt it. He turned and caught the attacker's arm in his jaws, the taste of silver and blood flooding his mouth as he ripped the limb free. The silence. Seeker's scream cut off when Cruz's paw crushed his skull. Marcus and the warriors arrived as Cruz fought through the entrance. They engaged the remaining guards while Cruz plunged deeper into the facility, following that golden thread that pulled him down corridors lit by flickering torches. The air smelled of old earth and fresh blood and Phoenix's scent, lavender and omega sweetness corrupted by fear and pain. No, no, please, no. He shifted back to human form to navigate the narrow passages, not caring about his nakedness or the blood covering his skin. His hands found a door sealed with iron bars. He ripped them free with alpha strength amplified by desperation. Another corridor, another door. The bond pulled him deeper into the mountain's heart. Then he felt it, Phoenix's presence so close now, and so terribly weak. The final door broke under his assault. Cruz stumbled into a cell carved from raw stone, and his heart stopped. Phoenix lay crumpled on the floor, her dress torn, her skin too pale, her breathing shallow. Her hands were still pressed protectively over her belly, but he could barely sense the pup's life force. That vital spark that had danced and rolled in response to his voice was dim as a dying ember. Phoenix. Her name tore from his throat as he dropped to his knees beside her, his hands hovering over her body, afraid to touch and cause more damage. Phoenix, baby, please, look at me. She didn't respond. Her eyes were closed, her lips bloodless. Cruz pressed his ear to her belly and heard the pup's heartbeat, faint, irregular, failing. No. The word was a command and a prayer. No, you don't give up. Either of you. Do you hear me? He placed both hands on her belly, willing his alpha magic through his palms, and began to speak. I've got you. I'm here. You're safe now. Come back to me. Both of you. Come back. His voice filled the cell, resonating off stone walls, carrying every ounce of power and love and desperate need. The pup stirred weakly. Phoenix's eyelids fluttered, but didn't open. That's it, Cruz encouraged, his voice breaking. That's my girl, my strong, brave girl. Come back. Let me hear your voice. Let me see your eyes. Please, Phoenix. Please don't leave me. I just found you. You can't. He couldn't finish. Tears tracked through the blood on his face as he held her, speaking continuously, begging the moon goddess and fate and anything that might listen to let her survive. Phoenix drifted in darkness that felt both infinite and confining. She could hear Cruz's voice, distant, desperate, breaking with emotion, but she couldn't seem to reach it. Her body felt wrong, disconnected, like she was floating away from it piece by piece. Is this death? She wondered. Is this how it ends? Not if you choose differently. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Light bloomed in the darkness, silver and ethereal, coalescing into a form that made Phoenix's wolf whimper in recognition and reverence. The moon goddess stood before her, beautiful and terrible, power radiating from her like heat from the sun. My goddess, Phoenix whispered, trying to bow. I don't understand. Am I dying? The goddess's smile was sad. Your body fails. Your pup retreats into silence, waiting for a voice that grows fainter. But you stand at a threshold, Phoenix of Silver Creek. A choice point that will determine not just your fate, but the fate of all shifter kind. Phoenix looked down at herself, translucent, insubstantial, barely there. What choice? I'm too weak. I've always been too weak. You've been taught weakness. The goddess moved closer, and Phoenix felt warmth like summer rain. Taught that omegas are lesser, submissive, powerless, but that is a lie perpetuated by alphas who feared the truth. What truth? That omega power is not lesser than alpha power. It is the counterbalance. Alphas command and conquer. Omegas nurture and protect. Alphas are the sword. Omegas are the shield. And your pup, the goddess placed a glowing hand over Phoenix's translucent belly. Your daughter is meant to carry both, to be the bridge that unites what has been divided for millennia. Phoenix felt tears on her face, though she wasn't sure she had a face here. Then why did she go silent? Why couldn't I protect her? Because you didn't know your own strength. Because you believed the lies. The goddess's eyes, silver as moonlight, held infinite compassion. I can send you back to your body. Cruz's voice will sustain the pup long enough for her to be born. You can live as you have lived, protected, sheltered, believing yourself weak. Many would choose this. Or I awaken what sleeps inside you, the omega power that runs through your bloodline, dormant since your ancestors forgot how to access it. The goddess's expression turned serious. But know this, awakened power brings awakened responsibility. Enemies will fear you more. Challenges will be greater. You will never again hide in shadows, because you will carry light that cannot be dimmed. Phoenix thought of Cruz, of his voice breaking as he begged her to wake. She thought of her pup, her daughter, silent and failing because Phoenix couldn't be strong enough. She thought of every moment she'd believed herself worthless, unworthy, too weak to matter. No more. I choose strength, Phoenix said, and her voice echoed through the infinite darkness. I choose to protect my daughter, my mate, myself. Whatever it costs, I choose to be strong. The goddess smiled, bright as the full moon. Then receive what is yours by right and blood. Rise, Phoenix. Rise and remember what omegas were always meant to be. Power slammed into her, silver and ancient and vast as oceans. It burned through her translucent form, solidifying her, changing her, awakening something that had slept for generations. Phoenix threw her head back and felt her Omega Wolf surge forward, no longer submissive, but fierce, protective, powerful. When she opened her eyes, she was back in her body. Cruz knelt over her, his face streaked with tears and blood, his voice hoarse from continuous speaking. He looked destroyed, desperate, barely holding himself together. His hands pressed against her belly, and she could feel his alpha magic trying to sustain their daughter. Cruz, she whispered. His head snapped up, amber eyes wide with shock and hope. Phoenix? Oh, moon goddess, Phoenix! Movement at the door. A silent seeker, the leader judging by the power that radiated from him, stood with a blade raised, murder in his eyes. He lunged toward them, too fast for Cruz to intercept in his exhausted state. Phoenix's power exploded outward. Silver light erupted from her body in a wave that threw the attacker backward. He hit the wall with bone-shattering force, his blade clattering uselessly to the floor. Phoenix rose to her feet, her eyes glowing molten silver, her hands radiating protective Omega magic that wrapped around Cruz like a shield. You will not touch them, she said, and her voice carried power that made the silent seeker cower. You will not threaten my mate or my pup. I am Phoenix, awakened Omega, and you are finished. The silent seeker scrambled to his feet, fear replacing murder in his expression. He ran for the door. Phoenix raised her hand, and silver light lanced through the air, catching him mid-stride. He dropped without a sound, his heart stopped by pure protective magic. Then pain ripped through Phoenix's belly, stealing her breath and dropping her to her knees. The power guttered like a candle as her body seized. Phoenix! Cruz caught her, his arms coming around her from behind, supporting her weight. The pup! She gasped. Cruz, she's coming. It's too early, but she's... Another contraction, stronger than the first. Phoenix cried out, and Cruz's voice rumbled desperately in her ear. Hold on, I've got you. We're getting you home. Just hold on. But Phoenix knew with terrible certainty that they didn't have time. Her daughter was coming now, and the birthing would kill them both if they didn't make it to safety. Cruz lifted Phoenix into his arms and ran. Behind him, he could hear Marcus and the warriors finishing off the remaining silent seekers. But his focus had narrowed to the woman in his arms and the pup trying to be born 2 months too early. Talk to me, Phoenix gasped between contractions. She needs your voice. So Cruz spoke as he ran, words tumbling out between gasping breaths. I've got you, both of you. You're going to be fine. Our daughter is strong like her mother. She's going to be beautiful and fierce and perfect, just like you. Just hold on a little longer. Phoenix's hands clutched at his shoulders as another contraction hit. Cruz, I can't. We're not going to make it to the palace. She's coming too fast. He knew she was right, could feel through the mate bond that her body was failing, that the awakening of her power and the stress of captivity had pushed her past endurance. They'd never survive the 60-mile journey back. Unless... The thought crystallized with desperate clarity. His voice sustained the pup. What if the mate bond, fully completed, fully accepted, could sustain them both? What if combining their alpha and omega powers created something strong enough to carry them through? Cruz stumbled to a stop in a clearing halfway down the mountain. Marcus and the warriors caught up, forming a protective circle as Cruz lowered Phoenix carefully to the moss-covered ground. What are you doing? Phoenix asked through gritted teeth. We have to keep moving. We're completing the mate bond, Cruz said, kneeling beside her. Right now. It's the only way to stabilize you and the pup long enough to get home. Phoenix's silver eyes widened. The mating ritual? Cruz, I'm in labor. I can barely think, let alone... Then don't think. Just feel. Just trust me. He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his gaze. I know you're scared. I know this is fast and desperate, and not how it should be. But Phoenix, I love you. I've loved you since the moment I saw you, and I'm asking you to let me complete this bond. Let me tie my life to yours so completely that death can't take you without taking me too. Please. Tears streaked Phoenix's face. I love you too, she whispered. I'm terrified and in pain, and I don't know how we survive this. But I love you. So yes, complete the bond. Cruz leaned down and kissed her, pouring everything into it. Love and desperation and absolute devotion. Phoenix kissed back despite her pain, her hands fisting in his hair. When they broke apart, Cruz moved to her neck, to the spot where his mark would claim her as his queen. This will hurt, he warned. Everything hurts already. Just do it. His teeth sank into her neck, breaking skin, marking her with his scent and power and claim. Phoenix's scream echoed through the clearing, but it transformed mid-sound from pain to something else. Power surged between them, gold and silver, alpha and omega, two halves finding completion. The mate bond solidified from a golden thread into a rope of light that bound them soul to soul. Their combined power exploded outward in a visible aura. Marcus and the warriors stumbled back, shielding their eyes from the brilliance. Cruz felt it through every cell. Phoenix's omega magic twining with his alpha power, creating something unprecedented. Something strong enough to sustain life against impossible odds. Phoenix gasped, her hand flying to her belly. Cruz, her heartbeat is stronger. I can feel it. Because we're connected now. Cruz's hand covered hers on her stomach. She's drawing strength from both of us. We can do this. We can get you home. He lifted her again, cradling her against his chest as another contraction hit. But this time, instead of weakening her, the pain seemed to flow through their bond and dissipate, shared between them so neither bore the full weight. Cruz ran. He ran with his mate in his arms, and their daughter fighting to be born. Ran with power burning through his veins, and Marcus's warriors flanking them. Ran toward home and safety, and the healers who could ensure his family survived. His voice never stopped, a continuous rumble of love and encouragement, and commands that the pup obey and wait just a little longer. Almost there, he murmured as the palace finally came into view. You're doing so well. Both of you are so strong. Just a little further. Servants scattered as Cruz burst through the palace doors, his bellowed command bringing healers running. They'd prepared the medical wing during his absence, laying out supplies and blankets and everything needed for a high-risk birth. Cruz laid Phoenix on the bed as gently as his desperation allowed. Her eyes were glazed with pain, her breathing ragged, but that silver power still glowed beneath her skin. The healers moved to assist, but she clutched Cruz's hand with surprising strength. "Don't leave," she gasped. "I need your voice. She needs it." "I'm not going anywhere." Cruz positioned himself behind her on the bed, supporting her back against his chest, his mouth close to her ear. "I'm right here for every second." The head healer, an ancient she-wolf named Mara, examined Phoenix quickly. Her expression was grave but determined. "The pup is in position, strong heartbeat, but she's small, and this will be difficult. You'll need to push through pain unlike anything you've felt." "I can do it," Phoenix said through gritted teeth. "I know you can." Cruz's arms wrapped around her from behind, his hands splaying over her belly. "You're the strongest wolf I've ever met, and I'll be right here, speaking to both of you, keeping you strong. Our daughter is about to meet the world, Phoenix. She's about to meet her incredible mother." Another contraction hit, and Phoenix's scream was muffled against Cruz's arm. But she bore down, pushing with everything she had, while Cruz's voice rumbled encouragement and love and absolute certainty in her ear. The healers worked efficiently, calling instructions that Phoenix fought to follow through the haze of pain. Time became meaningless. There was only pain and pushing and Cruz's voice anchoring her to reality, his power flowing through their bond to sustain her when her own strength failed. Phoenix had never understood how women died in childbirth until now, until she felt her body being torn apart from the inside. "I can't," she sobbed. "Cruz, I can't do this." "Yes, you can." His voice was absolute command and infinite tenderness combined. "One more push. That's all. One more, and we meet our daughter. Come on, love. Be strong for one more moment." Phoenix gathered every scrap of strength, human, wolf, and omega power, and pushed. The world exploded into silver light and searing pain, and finally, the sound of a newborn's cry. "She's here," Mara announced, lifting a tiny squalling bundle. A daughter, small but healthy, perfect. Cruz's arms tightened around Phoenix as their daughter was placed on her chest. Phoenix looked down through tears at the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. A tiny pup with dark hair and eyes that would probably lighten to amber like her father's, wailing her displeasure at the world with impressive volume. "Hello, little one," Phoenix whispered, her hand cupping the baby's head. "Hello, Aurora. We've been waiting for you." At the sound of her mother's voice, Aurora quieted. At the rumble of Cruz's voice as he spoke over Phoenix's shoulder, the baby's eyes opened wider, and a visible pulse of gold and silver light rippled across her skin. Phoenix felt it through their connection, her daughter, their daughter, carrying both alpha and omega power in perfect balance. "She's amazing," Cruz breathed, his finger stroking Aurora's tiny hand. The baby latched onto it immediately, her grip surprisingly strong. "You're both amazing. Phoenix, I can't even—" I know, Phoenix said softly. She leaned back against him, exhausted beyond measure, but more whole than she'd ever felt. I know. Through the windows, she could see dawn breaking over the mountains. A new day, a new life, a new family forged in desperation and sealed in love. And when Cruz began to speak softly to their daughter, his voice making Aurora coo contentedly, Phoenix closed her eyes and let herself believe in futures that didn't hurt. Let herself believe she was finally, truly home,